Okay. Perfect. So Julie, how are you?
I am fine. I think this is marvelous. And I just want to thank Ira and Steve and everyone involved, Elizabeth, in AmazingCon for being able to pull something so fantastic together out of the ether.
I agree. It seemed to like just kind of appear one day and we were told where to be and it was great.
I know.
I'm
It's
in for that.
wonderful. I know it. And to have a chance to actually be in the same room with you is a treat, always.
I know, it really is. It's weird. I was debating how it was going to be doing a reading virtually, but you know what? It's lovely. I see some friends in the audience. I see Julie's face. I'm good.
Yes, I know. The nice thing too is that because we're doing it together, one of us can take a break and just kind of go make faces and do things. Not that I would do that.
We talked about that. And we were going to do it all the way.
All the way through. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
So as a taste of what's to come, since we're going to wait a couple of minutes to let people gather, you'll be reading from, you tell people what you're reading from.
Ooh, I will be reading from Hellborn, Book 1 of the Guild of Shadows, and I'll also be reading, I brought a cover painting, and I'll also be reading
the new cover. Yeah, sorry.
I love it. No, I love it. You are so ready all the time. And I will be reading from Amazing Stories as well, my story that was in it.
Perfect.
So because
that sounds
because
wonderful.
they put event planner on it and that has event planning in it. How am I supposed to resist?
How can you resist? I have an amazing story for you.
Oh, do tell.
I do tell. My very first sale in China was the reprint of my Amazing Story. So
congratulations.
The one with the rubber duckies in issue 1. I did. Yeah.
I love it. That's
seniors,
amazing.
An alien child, and rubber duckies. You just can't go wrong with this mix. And it's a tearjerker. Let me tell you. A tearjerker.
Because you're good at what you do. That's amazing, though. Congratulations. I hope they snap up everything that you've written because they should.
Thank you. I just love the artwork that goes into the Amazing Stories magazine with our stories.
I know, me too.
Not just the pictures of us, which look great, but the work of the artists to come out with our stories and illuminate them is wonderful.
It is. It's certainly good for the complexion to get like a little drawing of yourself, right? Because it's like, ta-da.
I feel I'm a little bright, but it's better bright than dark. So there you go.
That's not a bad thing.
Gloomy. Oh, there I am. Okay, I'm shading now. So I will be reading from a book that isn't out yet.
Treat. I'm so looking forward to that.
Thank you. They did a great job on the cover. I'm so pleased. This isn't the actual hardcover. This is the one they send you ahead of time that has mistakes in it. horrors. I actually had to correct it before I read it, so I didn't make mistakes again.
That's smart. That's a really good idea.
But interestingly enough, I'm currently writing the sequel, so it'll be my very first time in my career that I'll have written 2 books before anything comes out. It's liberating, and yet I feel like I have to monitor myself for spoilers now. I could spoil myself.
You could. You have to be careful. Did you monitor today's reading so that you're ready to not spoil yourself?
I did laundry. I don't know. No, I was a bad person. I didn't check anything. I read to myself and I timed it. I did that part, so that part's okay. But no, I'm a bad person. I have no extra time. Oh, hi, Jeffrey. Sorry, I see people coming in.
I know. It's great.
A general hello to everyone. So we've got another minute. So Marie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. I am in my Bastion office in the basement. So it's quite lovely.
Nice and bright.
I've got this bright light right there so that I don't come out like a washed out ghost.
Media savvy people. Oh my goodness, it's so amazing. And Diane's here, and Bobby and Will and Tom and Robert and Cliff. It's nice they're in big print right now. If we get many more people, it'll be small print and I won't be able to say hello.
That's true. We do have, just so people know, we were warned that there might be bombers and stuff. We'll kick them out as quickly as we see them. It'll be fun.
And the righteous unicorn of kicking them out will play across the screen when this happens. So if I'm fat, hopefully we don't get any, but it's unfortunate. Marie's ready. So Well, shall I start, my dear?
Yes, I have been looking forward to this. But first, you must tell me how you are. I answered you where I was. Tell the good people where you are, Julie. Although I think people might guess.
They might guess. Yes, this is my new office. Actually, it's we switch rooms. I'm in one that used to be Roger's,
Oh,
and
nice.
so he moved bookcases in, and it's really cozy. I didn't need the floor space that he does, and I'm really enjoying it. I got a nice window here, giving me nice reflected light, and it's a
Nice.
good workspace, and it's been not too bad. Like I really kicked into right in the climax of the story. That always helps, and getting to hang out with people. Like this is nice.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yes, so thank you. Yeah, we're doing well. We were actually kind of crazy busy today. We were running around going, the time.
I know it's weird. I'm so used to not having things scheduled in anymore that now when something is scheduled, it seems like such a bigger thing than it is. Like it's
It is. I mean, actually, I'm rather delighted. Roger was running around saying, "Why are we so busy?" And I said, "Embrace that.
exactly go with it. Go with the flow, my friend.
Go with the busy." So my name's Julie Czerneda, and I'm with wonderful Bilodeau, and I'm going to start reading now from the upcoming next book in the Web Shifters Library that comes out August from Daw in beautiful hardcover and audiobook, and they're recording the audiobook right now, which makes me very happy because I sent in as many pronunciations as I could. But now you're going to have to hear it from me. So if we're ready, I'm going to read the little clips, and I don't think there's any spoilers in here. I tried very hard to take them out. Oops, that's not the page I start at. I start at the first pink thing. Pink thing.
Okay, I'm going to mute
Okay,
myself because I'll start laughing when you're reading. So I will just, step out now.
you can make gestures. I appreciate that. All right. The all-species library of linguistics and culture consisted of facilities for them and those for us. Us being those working there, them being everyone else, though occasionally that seemed to blur. For them, Paul and I had designed, with me as eager test subject, areas suited to as wide a variety of life forms as possible. Decorative, practical changes in flooring help guide our visitors to the habitat zone most ideal for their use, though occasionally that seemed to blur too, given the morbid curiosity of those inclined to seek information about a different species in the first place. So we'd warning signs and staff trained to intercept thrill seekers, but every so often misadventures happened. The worst to date was the Hazel, who'd lustfully followed a Nifson into that being's caustic atmosphere, getting second-degree burns and a stern talking to about interspecies boundaries. Boundaries of more concern to non-Nifson if it came to that. For us, there were discrete accesses to the various zones in case of besotted Hazels and so forth. For them, there was the lobby with its tall windows and convenient racks for outerwear and boots, a convenience for me as well, there being a wealth of biological material left on such articles, simply waiting to be assimilated and remembered. One must keep up, as Ursh would say. For us, there was the counter where jemmies, as the artifacts were called in Hillview pubs, were assessed. While we thought asking for new information for the library in return for a question would keep updating our files with slang, materials, and latest fashion trends, what we received all too often was stuff. Henry and her helpers kept a tally. Stuff fit our criteria for new information 40% of the time, 60% therefore did not. At first, we'd insisted politely that visitors take their rejected offerings away with them. It soon became apparent this was wishful thinking on our part. Oh, and Ervikian would offer to consume whatever they brought, but then they'd regurgitate it when no one was looking, making matters gooey. Those who brought actual treasure typically clung to them as if, although they were the worst about complaining to our staff that they didn't know a priceless artifact from a ration wrapper. The rest, who were the most, they left their stuff behind too. A trickle landed on the counter of the Anytime Chow Incorporated food dispenser. Luckily for interspecies relations, its surly operator, Rambo Riomatii, had come to the somewhat startling conclusion the items were gratuities. Even more puzzling, the Carassian broke each apart, zealously hoarding the remnants until deciding to dispose of them all to start again. And no one, not even Paul, was inclined to question the personal habits of a giant-shelled being with a temper shorter than a mousel's eyelash. A being, moreover, who became an indiscriminate carnivore once he became she in another molt or two. Not a concern we shared with staff, nor more importantly with the Hamlet of Hillsview Preservation Committee, The members convinced we'd pulled a trick on them somehow, because surely they'd never agreed to this many aliens traipsing through their beloved countryside on a daily basis. They had. We'd documents to prove it on every level of Botharan bureaucracy, and none of our visitors traipsed. But as Paul assured me when I snarled, none of that mattered. They'd seen who and what came down the starship ramps, and frankly, the first Hazel might have done it. Those visitors with banners, or who read the signs, used the recycled containers by the main doors. The rest were, shall we say, creative or vindictive. After a few months, the Hamlet of Hillsview Preservation Committee met on the particular issue and produced with laudable unanimity a directive to the library to retrieve and deal with the litter, complete with a map attached to indicate where off-worlders were dumping their trash. And we couldn't keep it all. The 30% we accepted as new information was filling the first basement level and would encroach on the second any moment. It turning out successful visitors to the library wouldn't take back what they brought here either. I amended the brochure that we gave out at Hickstar Station to any who planned to come to the library. It now stated in warning colors, appropriate to the widest variety of prospective visitors, that any object brought to Botharis must leave the planet with the individual who brought it here. Paul had laughed at me, then arranged for a disposal company. Them, us. In reality, the library was for everyone. Our small effort to protect the known universe from potentially deadly ignorance. Conflict vanished, according to Ursh, and she would know, having been around when humanity stepped off its home planet, when both sides demonstrated mutual respect and decent manners. The tricky part was ensuring both sides knew what those were. We were ready. While we didn't advertise our underlying purpose was to avert disastrous misunderstanding, the library was designed to alert Paul and me of any questions implying the possibility. Thus far, only one had. Evan Gooseberry's, and you can find that in search image. That's the preceding book. Not a bad spot of work, as a Botharan would say. Today, a generation ago, they would have said, spot of sweat. Going to prove the library earned its keep, even for Paul, who, yes, wouldn't use slang, being a linguist and aware of its pitfalls, but web beings had a different perspective. On such fleeting terms used correctly, would convince those around us we belonged more than any recitation of fact. The opposite being true, we knew better than to guess. I entered the library for this day's spot of work using the nearest gate from the garden, which wasn't a pretty gate, being a field portal fitted with biosensors, but in winter I appreciated how the grate in the floor whisked away any deplorable moisture, as now. I was somewhat disheveled and damp, but on time. And for some, on time meant being in place and ready to help Henry at the assessment desk or Allie Orman in the response room. For me, it had evolved more into, Essen said hello to someone in the building, but we're not sure where she is exactly. Scarlett would. We'd negotiated, and there had been raised voices and drooling. Which of the snoop she'd hidden in every nook and cranny during the library construction must be deactivated? Paul remained convinced she had. But fortunately, my webkin considered it beneath her to inform mere ephemerals where I was. At the moment, damp and disheveled me was in the chow for a bracing hot drink before being on time, once Lambeau cooperated. Soon didn't appear likely. The back of a shiny black carapace remained presented to me, marred by permanently embedded footprints, Evan Gooseberry's, as it happened, not that any of us had the nerve to tell the Crassian his last mold hadn't been perfect. I know you can do it. You made SOSE hot fudge tea. You stink. My damp fur might have had a musty tang. Once I've had the drink, I leave and take the stink with me. No. A stalked eye appeared over the carapace to glower at me. You are not SOSE. I lifted my ears in a pleasant expression, and though sorely tempted to remind the creature I was in charge, along with Paul, pulling rank wouldn't budge Lambeau. She told me you made the very best she'd ever had, if the only. While my Lician self found fudge irresistible, however it was consumed, Lambeau's version of fudge tea had been a first. A second eye stalk joined the first. SOSE has good taste. When she's back, you could try hers. A third eye came over. She is coming back, isn't she? Lambeau was rude to everyone, including Paul, except Paul, so it was possible I'd missed the development of a fondness for my other self, but more likely the Carassian didn't like changes. She'll return in spring, once the ground thawed sufficiently for planting to resume, and more importantly, the sun came back. While the library garden was my Lician self's particular delight, the lengthening dark of each winter night invoked a primal terror. And it had been Paul who'd urged me, being kindness itself, to avoid the form for the rest of winter. I'd agreed for his sake, my friend having to walk beside my quivering self with a large lantern when he could get me to leave the house at all. Lionel had come up with the where and the how. SOLSE Key, staff and friends waving farewell, left Betheris on the Largus Pride to do off-site work for the library. Rudy Lefebvre, the ship's captain and Paul's cousin and one of the few who knew who I was, arranged for SOLSE to be seen boarding the ship, swaddled in blankets. After a very pleasant going-away party, I attended as myself. The figure going up the ramp hadn't been me, of course, but Rudy in blankets, and I planned to have a word with him later about the quality of blankets, let alone the clumsiness of his gait. Lambo, please. I've been outside. I'm chilled. I'll take any hot beverage you make me. The Crassian rattled around to face me, great claws down, handing claws up. In one was a cup of sticky, steaming liquid. The clever scoundrel had known what I'd ordered the instant I'd walked into the chow. Here. I took the cup. Thank you. At last. But it wasn't fudge tea. It couldn't be. It was green. What is this? Your hot beverage, with an unsettlingly coy tilt to every eye stalk. You cannot poison me before I start work. Paul won't be happy. Fudge. I curled the lip and lifted the cup. This isn't fudge. Then you aren't being poisoned, are you? Oh. I'd possibly spent too much time as a Lycian. I looked down at the cup again and lapped up a little of the froth with my long tongue, which wasn't done by proper Lanavarians, but being the only one on the world had its advantages. Mint. Ooh, creamy, warm, lovely, hot mint. Well, my preference would have been to roll in it, which is actually proper behavior when done with friends. This would definitely do. I took a good swallow, enjoying the warmth filling my insides. Thanks, this time I said, quite sincerely. And Lambo's head tipped from side to side in a dismissive shrug. Be gone. Now, the thing with Essen is there's always something going on. And you get to see a little glimpse of it here. Locks are serious business in Ratasilla, as they are across Sacris 7 and throughout the worlds of the Sacris system. Locks and hinges, bars too, and anything to keep thee out, where it can be observed with caution and care, where the reasoned judgment can consider consequences, for what isn't of the in poses the greatest danger to the whole, so says instinct and so says law. Thus it is after caution, care, and gravely reasoned judgment, the breeding group in this humble sacristy home agree the one lingering out for the past 3 solars sniffling at doors and vents is indeed their offspring, she who had been taken for treatment. Agree joyfully, this lock should open, this bar lift, this door ease open, sufficient to permit the half-grown pup to enter, then close, lock snapping shut just shy of her tail, and the bar goes down behind the pup's supine, panting form as those already in retreat to individual secure cubbies, from there to observe from safety before offering more. The offspring should have been grateful, should remain prone and submissive until the will of those already in is revealed. Understanding acceptance is not done in haste. Any sacristy would. This one is different. This one rises to stare into peepholes meant to protect those in. And those in see her wrong yellow eyes, and they agree in sorrow what they must do, what sacristy have always done, cull the different. Ula is thrust out, locks and bars thumping into place behind her, and she staggers away across the cobblestones, stops to stare at the blood-streaked blue over her hands and throat. Knows it's wrong to fight the will of the inn, as she had fought. There are those in pain behind the locks and bars. The authorities will be called. There is one dead. The authorities will hunt her. And she stands out and desperately alone. Unfair, unjust. She belongs in. She is not wrong to be culled. Her nasal bulb swells, ready to voice her agony. But when she does, as she does, what comes from her isn't an anguished, eloquent sput. What comes out is a deep, shuddering howl. And Ula cringes, for the sound is wrong. Witnesses retreat and close their peepholes. The tiny pops as each lock like rain hitting sand. All abandon her, her kin, their neighbors, all. How could in the most basic right be forbidden? Defiantly, Ula howls again, and she whips her tail, leaving the scar of outrage on the wall of what had been home. Howls, and a distant echo. Another howl. And she leaps from shadow to shadow to find what answers her grief. The lobby was jammed with incoming scholars. We'd started off calling them clients, and not everyone who sought answers at the All-Species Library of Linguistics and Culture was an academic, but the new name, unlike the old, hadn't offended anybody yet and pleased the staff. With the exception of Lionel, who, in what he fondly believed a secret, but even maintenance knew, considered the seething mass to be a noble pilgrim seeking knowledge, he'd a sentimental streak. I kept to the wall as I tracked the scent of freshly arrived Evan gooseberry, in case there were clusters of wrens hidden among the crowd. Ursh's exhortation of "trust me, one mind is sufficient" had made the younger me eager to give the colonial form a try. How bad could it be? Having found out for myself, her warning made perfect sense. I'd have dropped to all fours to add speed, but I was now among those who'd find that shocking in a civilized being, which was prejudice of a sort, because there were civilized beings with 4 on the floor. But being curator, I had an image to uphold an excellent bipedal posture. Besides, I didn't want to lose the scent. I slowed further, catching another scent woven into Evan's, and managed not to scowl it. My having called her once the head of our security, she'd given herself the job. Not that she was in charge of anyone but herself. Our need was for Betharans, for we hired from the hamlet anyone willing and able to assist the onslaught of over-focused aliens find their way, usually to the nearest accommodation, there being nothing on the train. Our great staff enlarged in winter as farmers happy to find second employment, and we were happy to find anyone accustomed to large oblivious mammals and quarrelsome little birds. On his previous visit, Scarlett had developed an interest in Evan Gooseberry, which wasn't safe or healthy for the young, naive human, and if she'd taken it on herself to be his escort, my low growl startled the Eureka nearest me into regurgitating its breakfast. I told you, more vomit. Before anyone from the library noticed, meaning I'd be the one tasked with the cleanup, I slipped behind a trio of cloaked figures. Turning my head as I was drawn to a faint scent. Evan's scent on a cloak. A stronger trace going towards the admin office to Paul's office. I paused to lick my nostrils and tested the air with more care. Ah, beneath the Evan and the clouds of scents from those around us, including the Eureka's stomach, what only this me could detect. Something else, something impossible. We'd a new species in the library, one known to never ever leave its home system, not in any human record, nor more impressively in Ursh memory. Yet here they were, disguised in heavy, thick cloaks, not hidden from my nose. We had secrecy. Ta-da! And that would be Evan, and that would be a secrecy.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. She is fun to write.
And you do it so well too. I love Essen. I think you were correct when you handed me the first Essen book and told me you thought she'd be my favorite. I think you nailed that one on the head.
And just the right thing to be writing right now. Honestly, something with that kind of heart and the humor and you know, repetitive vomit. These are all good things.
It's true.
It's true.
It's on theme.
It is on theme. Now, do you want a question or two before you start reading, or do you want to jump in and read?
Oh, I don't know. What do you prefer? Well, why don't I ask you a question or two that are related with Essen?
Okay.
And then, oops. So one of the first questions is
audience questions.
Oh, that's good. I've got mine in my. Hang on, I'm just bringing them up now. I didn't print mine. One of the first questions related specifically with Essen is, how did you come up with the concept of Essen herself? Like, was it something that just hit you as a character or as a biological concept? Because both those things are so important to the character.
It definitely, what hit me was the biological concept. I was teaching a 4th year evolutionary biology class, and we were doing this thing where you picture, you know, long-lived, very few offspring versus, you know, live fast, many offspring, which is a pattern that you see in nature. And I wondered what would happen if you just extrapolate to the point where you live so long, you almost have no offspring, or even to the point of it's almost so rare you really don't even want to have offspring. And I didn't really like stories about immortals and things like that have a lot of angst and drama. I wanted, what would they do with themselves? They keep busy. How would they keep busy? And how could they be, what would be the biological gimmick that you would need to be that long lived? And I came up with you'd have complete control over your cellular structure, your molecular structure. You could repair yourself. So that just offhandedly led to, your memory would be biochemical, and you would, of course, be able to take any shape that you knew. And that was it. And then I thought, well, who would be the most interesting of that kind of creature? And I thought, well, clearly the one who doesn't fit in and is the youngest and has a lot of knowledge, but not a lot of practical. And that was Essen. And from there, she just kind of wrote herself.
That's amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
She's certainly memorable. I had one more question that kind of ties into that one so much, because it's world building question. So one person asked, and my question is hidden behind you right now, but basically it was like, when you do your world building, are you one of those like writers who just like keeps accumulating ideas until you have enough to like tie a bunch of different concepts together? Or do you generally have one idea, like the one with the longevity or immortality, where you kind of cling on to that and that brings every other idea along with you? So kind of a little bit like, how does your world building work?
Yeah, it's there's two ways, I think. One is with Essen and with the Clan Chronicles, the Thousand Words for Stranger, those books. I love that future. I love that we've got lots of species. We've got trade pack, space opera, the kind of thing where you can travel where you want. But what happens then with the interactions? I love that. So to some extent, because it's far future and I'm making that up as I go, it's more a case of series continuity and adding anything. Like I do collect information all the time and it just all drops in. I mean, I was reminded about spider leg hydraulics the other day, and that's in Spectrum now. So you just use everything. I'm coming up with a standalone book, a brand new story. That takes a lot of accumulation of information. I've been working on the one I'm going to write next, probably for 4 or 5 years, and I spent about 5 years researching before I started writing survival. So it really depends on the story.
That's cool. That's really cool. Thank you. I always learn so much from you.
And I have a question for you, and it's seriously, and who do you think you're fooling? And this comes from Derek. I have no idea what he's talking about, but it was so hilarious I had to put it in there.
Seriously? Yes. And 2, probably nobody, but I'm having fun.
There you go. I do have a serious question for you. I figure we might as well do a couple more before you start, if I may.
Sure.
As a bilingual author, do you find which language you write in affects this type of story that you're telling? I mean, is French or English more suited to a genre type of story in your mind as you write it? And if that makes sense. That came from Nathan.
That's an excellent question. My confession at the moment is that I mostly write in English. And the reason that I write mostly in English, and it does kind of answer the question of which stories are language led. And the reason that I write in English is because I read science fiction and fantasy. I discovered the genre in English. So all of my language, the cadence of the plot, the story, like they're very different stories in French and English. If you read like a French like Elisabeth van Arburg, like she's got some books translated into English. Jean-Louis Trudel, Yves Ménard, like you can read some of the French stories first, and there is a different cadence to the story, and the themes are very different, and the way that it's presented is very different. But because I've read English so much more, I find that I'm more prone to writing in the English style, and plus I have more of the vocabulary, although my French vocabulary is pretty much on par. So even when my Destiny series was translated into French, I didn't translate it. Elisabeth van Arburg, which is one of the top like amazing authors in Quebec, took lead of the translation, bless her heart, and did an amazing job. But my language is not at the level it is in English at this point. So that's kind of where I went. But it would be definitely a different story, because all the stories I have in French up to like mid-20s, when I was still writing quite seriously in French, they're all much more literary.
Actually, I have an addendum to that. I've been told by someone who also, like yourself, is French is their first language. They write in English, science fiction in English. Is that English just offers you so many made-up words. You can just make a word up in English as fast as you can in science fiction, and it works. But it's not as easy in French. And would that be fair to say?
To some level, I think it is. Like, and it depends who you're targeting to. Like in Quebec, there's a lot of different languages that you can throw in there,
Mm-hmm.
but the and this might be part of my own inexperience, and but the language is a lot more rigid than in English, and rigid not in a bad way, rigid as in
No, no.
a sacred kept way. You know, it's like this is French and this is how French acts. Whereas in English, you can pretty much throw like three things together and somebody will make sense of it.
Absolutely, totally agree. And if I may ask you one more question?
Of course.
Well, actually, this is for both of us. Do we wake up fabulous or do we have to work at it?
I had that question as well. You answer that one first.
Yes.
That's my answer too. Yes. Coffee helps for me.
It does. It does. I think it all depends on what your definition of fabulous is. But I am a morning person myself, and if my eyes open and it's full speed ahead, so I annoy the heck out of people who really need that longer start to the day. I have learned to be calm and quiet, and go into another room, go outside, garden, that kind of thing. Yes.
That is what I do as well. Yes, because I get up and I go. So I come here and I hang out. It's good.
It's good. It's good. My dear, would you like to go ahead and read, and I will remember how to mute me.
That sounds good. And afterwards, we do have one question from Bobby in the chat comments. That
Yes, and I have a question for you to worry about from Tanya Huff.
Oh, gee.
I know. Be afraid.
I'd worry right before my reading. Thank you,
know.
Julie.
Isn't that good?
Awesome. Okay. Oh, if Julie... booting Julie out. If anything weird happens in chat, or like, any bombers happen, just unmute yourself and say sparkle, and I will deal with it.
With vengeance and the pointy horn of doom.
Yes. Awesome.
Thanks, Marie.
Thank you. All right. So let me just reorganize my screen here. Thank you all for coming. This is fun. And thank you to Julie, who, by the way, now that she's oh, there we go. I muted and unmuted myself. I was saying some secrets about you, Julie, and I didn't want anybody to hear them. Before we're good at this. You and I, we got this. We got this. So, I was just telling that Julie told me I'd be a hard act to follow, so she wanted to go first, and I think she set me up. That's what I was saying. Yeah, you can laugh. You can laugh all you want. It's true. All right. All right, my friends. So I'm going to read you from two different works today. So 2 scenes from Hellborn, which is book 1 of the Guild of Shadows. I will give you a gift afterwards in the chat Zoom group thing. So stick around. All right. This first scene is from chapter 1. The orange hue of the fire flickered in the stairwell, then grew brighter by the second. I didn't have much time. I headed towards the sobs quickly, ignoring the crunching of glass under my feet. A child's room, very pink, very cute, very empty. Where the heck was the kid? And the parents, for that matter? Flames joined the light, the heat rising exponentially, the smoke so thick I had to crouch beneath it. Even then, my eyes stung. I wouldn't last long. The fire raged loudly, blocking out the sobbing. Where would a kid? It dawned on me. The kid's closet was closed. Of course she'd be in there. Closets held monsters until the rest of the house held monsters. Then they were safe ground. I opened the door. The little girl looked up from where she'd scrunched herself into a ball, holding a stuffed unicorn, which was predictably pink. Come on, I said as delicately as I could. The kid looked up with wonder and some panic. Of course, she couldn't see me, as I still held the shadows folded around me. I sighed. Seeing me, a purple-skinned demon, wouldn't exactly make her feel safer. Close your eyes, I said. I'm an angel, come to get you to safety. I looked at the incoming flames before focusing back on the girl. We have 30 seconds tops. The girl's eyes weren't closed, now wide with wonder. I sighed. I'm an angel unicorn, I added for good measure. I'm pink. She seemed even more pleased. But I can't touch you unless your eyes are closed. I can whisk you to safety if you close your eyes. She debated for a few seconds, then she closed them. Finally, kids and their need for reassurance. I swooped her up in my arms. Now that she was in the folded shadows with me, she could see me easily, if she opened her eyes. Keep them closed or we'll both fall, I said in my most dramatic, whimsical voice, which probably still made me sound slightly demonic, but hey, points for effort. She nodded and scrunched her face more. I grinned and opened the window. The fire filtered into the bedroom and the floor felt much warmer than it should. Second story wasn't bad. I had little respect for many things, including gravity. Well, gravity at this height. My respect for it grew the higher I got. I jumped out in the backyard, landing hard on my feet, trying to absorb the blow for the little girl. I was pretty sure human kids were fairly breakable. Keep your eyes closed, I told the kid. But she'd felt the landing in fresh air and seemed intent on seeing her magical pink unicorn angel. Her eyes grew big, all brown in fear, and a shriek ripped from her throat as she saw me. Neighbors could be heard all around us now, several shouting about the backyard, and sirens blared in the distance. Great. Great for the kid. She was fine. Not so great for me, though. Bye-bye, I told the kid, who still looked with terror at the purple-skinned demon girl who just saved her. I quickly slipped away to somewhere safer, and maybe, with any luck, somewhere slightly quieter. First scene. So the narrator, Luke, is Tiramisu, who is a purple-skinned demon, and she likes what she does. I'm going to read you another little scene. It's a bit further into the book. I don't think I give any spoilers. I kind of chopped it up a little bit, but I really like it, and it would make me laugh, so I thought it might make you laugh. So here's another little scene from Hellborn. I don't recall ever having been in such a comfortable bed. The mattress was squishy, the sheets wonderfully soft, a duvet, poofy. Julie's just clued in which scene it is. Not that I had much experience in the matter, but I was pretty certain that this was, in fact, the perfect bed. Or it might just be the first time that I'd snuggled in a bed that wasn't just a necessity, a hard slab. I snuggled deeper into the blankets, trying to come up with a plan, still coming up empty. If I could have followed the man, I might have found my friend Clay. I sighed. I had no idea what to do, and, to make matters worse, I'd have to get up soon. The quality of the light was changing, so dawn was breaking. Not ready to commit to the day, I focused on the sounds around me and the comfort of this bed. The ticking of a clock somewhere deeper into the store, the buzzing of the front window lights left on overnight to ward off the darkness, the slight snoring of the puppy at my feet. I frowned. That didn't sound quite right. The quality of the snoring was a bit long and deep for Max. And had he taken up this much room on the bed last night? Alerted that something was off, I suddenly became very, very awake. I'd hidden a dagger underneath the pillow, grateful I'd had the presence of mind to do at least that much. I reached down, found the hilt, and took comfort in it. I shifted gently. The breathing and shape were all wrong for Max. What had they done with him? And why were they sleeping at my feet? Creep-tastic. The form shifted, moved slightly, stopped snoring. They were awake, too. Time to move. Fearing the blanket might entangle me, I didn't bother trying to stand and just sat up, ready to stab. I half expected to find a well-armored and well-armed assailant at the edge of my bed. Instead, there lay a curled-up, very naked man. I hesitated. I hadn't expected this. The man's eyes flew open and grew wide as he saw me staring at him. He threw himself off the bed, landing with a thud. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, pushing the blankets off of me, putting some distance between me and the naked man. "I'll just go," he said. It's okay," he added, as though to comfort me. "I'm not the one who's going to need comforting," I spat out. "Tell me who you are and where my dog is, or I'm going to eviscerate you." He didn't immediately answer, and I didn't feel like waiting him out. "Come up now or I will kill you." Two hands popped up, followed by a head and a naked torso. He remained kneeling, so that's as far as I saw, which was fine by me. This day had been shocking enough already, and it was just beginning. "Look, if you'll just let me leave," he repeated, "I'm sure that you'll find your dog again." "I'm sure that I'll find my dog again," I calmly said, "when you tell me what you did with him, possibly while I'm eviscerating you." He sighed in frustration and looked sideways toward the front of the store, where the light began to infiltrate. "I can't get the puppy," he said, "unless you let me go." "We'll see about that." I shrugged, flipped the knife, caught it by the blade, and extended my arm back to throw it at him. I aimed for the shoulder, but I was still pretty sleepy and willing to hit his face instead. "Wait!" he shouted. And we'll stop there so we don't hit any spoilers. Julie's like, "Come on." Um, so that's Hellborn. Yes, I got a sparkly unicorn. Good. So that was both from Hellborn, which is available as an ebook. It's not available yet as a paperback because COVID, and not wanting to add to the stress of it all because I can control that. So I did not. Now, I will give you guys a little gift afterwards, but I wanted to do a quick reading of my Amazing Stories story to conclude it. We're not bad on time. We're good? Okay, we're good. I got them from Julie, so that's good. Awesome, thank you. So this story, I got the sparkly unicorn okay, so I'm definitely in the good. Okay, this story is in issue number 3 of Amazing Stories, and it is called Out of Most Worlds Planet Cessation Extravaganza. Some of you may not be aware that I am an event planner by training. I have been doing this for like many, many years, almost 2 decades at this point. There is not a lot of event management stuff happening right now, you might imagine. Ergo, I thought I would read you from my event management story. Every event management practice is quite solid in this story, so you can feel confident as you read it that you are being supported by professionalism. Thank you. All right. Out of Most Worlds Planet Cessation Extravaganza. Rotera Kaklamar stared out the viewing part at the blue planet below, so full of oxygen, nitrogen, and life. She input its now confirmed gas content into her combustibility model and found it too low for her dreams of a burning planet ball. The information provided by the client had been faulty. A slight headache crept into her secondary temporal lobe. She sucked on her breathing tube in an attempt to get more hydrogen fluoride into her lung sacs and hopefully ward off the timeline-threatening pain. Now was not the time to panic. Rotera pumped up the music in the planning room, an insect string variation from her homeworld with a good tremor crescendo, and turned back to her charts. This planet was due for destruction within 1 of its weeks to make place in its attractive solar system for a large, more economical, and, quite frankly, less biodiversifically messy residential and business district. The developers had generously paid for an Out of Most Worlds Planet Cessation Extravaganza, which included some of Rotera's best effects and a full day of omens for people to make peace with their various deities / religions / hidden desires / questionable life choices. "This will be splendid," she said, still pleased with her timelines. Her joy dipped a bit, her thigh heart taking an extra beat, her skin turning a softer green as anxiety drained her blood to protect vital organs. She forced her hearts to calm and her primary thinking organ to relax. "This will be fine. Of course we expected a more combustible atmosphere. Oh, that would have been amazing. Begin with smaller portents like starbursts in the sky, end in a planet-consuming ignition, starting at both poles at once, preferably of different colors. They'd brought lots of phosphorescent chemicals of various chlorides just for the occasion, and have both fires spread out until they reached the equator at the same time. She sighed. That would have been a memorable effect. Stupid nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. How the information had become confused in her system was beyond her. They'd planned for something completely different. Even so, never had one of their operations failed. They were the best, unlike those fly-by-night cheap operations that just blew up planets without flair or consideration. But she was a top-rated world destruction event manager, and she would not fail. We must make the best with what we have. A knock came at her door. "Come in," she said, putting on a smile, which barely twitched as one of her new interns, an oxygen breather, entered. All long brown hair, pasty skin under his face mask, and just generally squishy looking. She wouldn't have brought him along on board, but the board had the board not felt it necessary to integrate them into their workforce. This is for the good of the company. Rotera took another deep gulp of hydrogen fluoride. Oxygen breathers popped around the universe like a plague of skin boils, so at least he came cheap. Yes, Steve? Even their names sounded squishy. Manager Kaklamar, he said, looking down toward the planet, a furtive sideways glance that conveys grief which did not escape her attention. Her limbs locked as she forced them not to twitch with a sigh, her skin's hue turning darker. Squishy in every way. She solidified her smile as he spoke. We don't have the appropriate resources manager on board to appropriately and cinematically destroy the planet? Rotera's entire face twitched as she attempted to hold her smile, trying to focus on him instead of her now threatened timeline. Squishy Steve continued, unperturbed, hopeful, even. Should we abort? She filled her lung sacs. Now, Squeeve. She paused. I mean, Steve. She really had to stop internally referring to him as Squishy Steve. We will not call off the job. We just need to think outside the atmospheric box. She flexed her eyes sideways reassuringly, but Steve flinched. Squishy. Rotera brought her two eyes closer together in a sure sign of displeasure. Squishy Steve failed to notice and continued to speak, his voice loud, fog lacing the interior of his atmospheric mask. She spoke over him in an attempt to get back to work while still meeting her managerial expectations. If we don't take care of this, someone else will, with less respect and beauty. Steve threw up his arms in the air like he'd been struck with an electric shock, which traveled all the way to his voice and made it even louder. That's not what I mean. I mean, destroying the planet at all. There are people living there. Steve, she said, proud of herself for not tripping on his name. We've got a detailed land assessment, and these creatures will benefit from this as well. Steve's eyebrows shot up. Rotera wondered if electricity really was coursing through him. She'd get the floor paneling checked out, just in case. Analysis shows that there is more than 80% chance that they destroy their planet within 2 of their decades. So between that and the highly desirable location and growing nearby systems, we just crunch the numbers and it's all logical. Why wait for a less opportune time when the investor is here now? 20 years, Steve whispered. That's time enough for an entire generation to grow to adulthood, and for new adults to change their parents' choices, and for existing adults to change their ways. Rotera laughed, the sound tumbling around her lungs and exiting her secondary mouth. You're funny. I didn't realize that about you, Steve. She pinched both mouths, ending the levity. Event management, however, is no laughing matter. People are counting on us. And I will end here.
Bravo.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I went first.
The pressure was all on me.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I have read it, but it's always better to hear it from you.
I like doing event management voice, you know, and I agree completely. Hearing you read Essen always makes me happy.
She's a joy. Are you ready for your question from Tanya Huff?
Yes, I am. I am ready.
Okay, here we go. This is verbatim. Hey, I have a question for Marie. Can you forgive friends who answer emails in their heads and then forget to actually type and send the response? I do believe this is a public grovel.
Yes, Tanya, I certainly can. If you do the same in turn, when it will happen to me as well. That's a good question.
I just have one more for you. Do you want now? Now that you've got that, it's a serious question.
Yeah, okay, and then I have one more for you afterwards. So,
okay. What does success mean to you? And that writing success, pardon me, and that comes from Melissa.
That's the same question I have for you too, so you have to think about it too.
Okay.
That's an excellent question. Thank you for sending it in, Melissa. But I'll go first so that then you have to I think that I'm inspired. I think success is multi-pronged. Writing success, like I think there's do people like my books? That's important too. Is it selling? I mean, there's the metrics of the success, and I do like my charts, so much like Rotera. But I think writing success for me, like in a grander scheme, means like, am I enjoying being a writer, and am I bringing joy by being a writer too? Am I giving something I'm proud of and that I'm pleased to continue providing to people? I think when you strip away publishing, you strip away the numbers, you strip away the expectations and the markets and everything else. That's what to me it comes down to at the end of the day.
I'm so glad you went deep because it's all true what you said. And I was just going to say a movie.
That's true too.
Mostly because a lot of my family doesn't actually read my books and they're waiting for the movie. It's been a while, you know, so it's absolutely true. If I'm not finding joy in it, I've always said this, that the day I'm not enjoying it, I walk away because I've got other things I could do. I love a lot of things, but I still find it actually even more joyful than I have before. So there you go. So still on the right path, I guess.
That's beautiful to hear from someone like you who has so many wonderful books already. So that's inspiring. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And I just got dinged in chat that we are over time.
Oh, okay. I guess we were 50 minutes and they want the room. Okay.
They do, which is totally fair. So Julie,
was there a question you said in the chat?
There was an extra question in the chat.
Bobby, how do I find time to write? Tell you what, Bobby, I will answer that on Twitter, if that's a good place, and I will make a little thing there and just tell you how I find time to write.
Perfect. And ding me if you were here, and I will give you a little gift as well. Find me on social media, wherever, email, and I will send you a little gift for coming here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Julie. Bye.
You too.